Hey team, this is Grant David Collins, and welcome to Basement Philanthropy, a place for people who do not want to wait until they are rich or retired to create meaning, impact, and connection with their money, regardless of the amount. On this episode, we're going to be talking about how you should start small and grow tall with your philanthropy this upcoming year. So let's get started. The title of this podcast comes from a song by a singer-songwriter named Rue Paines. Now, I was introduced to Rue Paines a couple years ago, and I have been really blown away by his lyrics and the meaning and feeling behind his music. So if you've never heard of him, go check him out on Spotify or Apple Music, and I think you'll fall in love with his music just like I have. In one of his really, really popular songs for the people that know about him, called Little Giants, he says the lyrics, "Start small, grow tall." And this was the inspiration behind what I want to talk about today, which is doing that, but with your philanthropy. Now, I do a lot of work with people who are just getting into this space. In fact, one of my favorite things to be doing with my time is to be with you around what you are wanting to create and what you're wanting to give. And it is so fun to be able to work through that discovery process. But I've noticed something in the work that I do with these individuals that has become a common trend and is, from my perspective, one of the reasons why real impact and change doesn't really happen a lot in this micro individual stage. And that is that we flip those two lyrics around, and instead of starting small and growing tall, we start tall and grow small. So some examples of that might be someone who is really wanting to be involved with alleviating poverty, and especially from a third world perspective. And so they are like headstrong into, I've got to create this difference in this, third world country. And that's what they're focused on. Or maybe there is somebody who has personally struggled with infertility. And so they want to go and help couples that are going through this process financially get the care and the service that they need. Or maybe another example is somebody who is really passionate about finances and specifically wants to help people who are experiencing the challenges of being pregnant as a teenager and getting their finances in order. Like, these are all real world scenarios that I have come across as I've talked to you. And my advice to every single one of these individuals has been the same. And that advice is start small and grow tall. You see, there is this weird sense of either standing on the sidelines, not feeling like we can get involved, or needing to lead a 600-person nonprofit that is, has millions of dollars behind it in order to bring about this change. And there doesn't seem to be any middle ground in our way and thinking about how to be involved with creating impact and change in the world. So we're either totally in it or we're not in it at all. And today I want to kind of pull back the curtains around how there's so much space in the middle for us to start giving and contributing and making an impact that can eventually lead to larger and larger impact down the line. So instead of just talking about this, I want to get you involved with it on your end. I want you to start working through what this might look like so that we can actually make some steps forward. Like, this podcast is not for people who just want to listen to cool stories. It's for people who want to create meaning and impact and connection with what they have on their end. And so that is exactly what we are about to do. So I want you to grab a piece of white paper or a note on your phone and get ready to do a little bit of brainstorming. Now, I have this belief that every single human being is uniquely qualified by the experiences of their life to be able to create a meaningful impact in the lives of others. There's so many little niche experiences that we have throughout our lives, growing up and then moving into adulthood, and then later adulthood, that makes us able to be able to relate or understand something in a way that really nobody else could, that could potentially impact other people. And so I want you to start being in inquiry around what that might look like. So for the next 5 minutes, I want you to start a timer. Start a 5-minute timer in just a second. And I want you to just brainstorm, brain dump around different things that potentially could be unique to you, or like something that you just care about and you don't really even know where it comes from. I want you to write down these things in just a list form, just a random brainstorm about things that potentially you would want to create an impact around. So this could be something like dogs or literacy, or like some sort of challenge that you faced in your life and you want to help other people with. It can be larger scale things like poverty or infertility, whatever it is. I just want you to start to brainstorm around this concept of, if I could make an impact, where would I actually do that impact? So pause this podcast, set a timer for 5 minutes, and then walk through the question, if I could create impact right now in a specific area, what would that be? And then just do a brain dump around it. Okay, now that you are done with thinking about broad areas of need that you potentially want to get involved with, and you could either write those down, or maybe you're in your car driving down the highway listening to this, so you can just think about those things in your head. I want us to walk through the process of making that impact reachable, or in other words, starting small so that we can eventually grow tall. And the way that we are going to do this is by putting in place a parameter. Oftentimes, the best way to be able to focus our energy is to put parameters in place that give us some sort of timeline or amount of resources that we can work between, so that we're not just thinking about this big, broad impact, but we're squeezing it down. And the parameter that I want to put in place is that we have to do something about this particular impact that we want to be involved with, or the particular need, in the next month. So one time or a few times, or whatever you decide to come up with, I would just start with one, again, starting small, growing tall. One thing that we can do to support or make a difference in this particular area sometime in the next month. So with that parameter in place, let's start to work through a couple items on your list and move them from this overarching broad area of potential impact down into something that is more reachable. So I'll give you 3 examples of potential things that you could do around broad areas of impact, and then creating them in a reachable way that you could absolutely be involved with in the next month. Let's pretend that you had written down literacy or books, like you just have an affinity for literacy and books. So a reachable area of impact could be individuals in your extended family that struggle with reading. There are so many kids who either don't have people to read to them, or they're nervous about reading, or they're not excited about it. And people can make a huge difference by, taking a little bit of time out of their life to go and read with somebody in their immediate family or neighborhood. And if there's nobody that fits that bill, you could reach out and contact your local library and see if they have any programs that you could get involved with volunteering with. Okay, another example. Let's pretend that the broad area of impact that you want to have revolves around the environment and nature. You really care about conserving nature, and so you want to somehow make a difference in that space. A way that you could make that reachable is by potentially going out and getting involved with your local community to help clean up some environment around you. Maybe there's a pond or a stream or a park that is a little bit trashy. Like, how could you go out and help clean that up to make that nature around you something that is beautiful and inviting again? Okay, the last example I have to share revolves around poverty. If that was something that you cared about a lot, something that you could do in your local community is get involved with your local food banks. I've talked about this time and time again, and I will continue to beat this drum because there's so much need in this area. But you could either volunteer at a local food bank or think about coordinating a local food drive for a food pantry or food bank in your community. So as you probably noticed by the examples that I just gave, like, none of these are going to change those topics forever. Like, we're not going to eliminate child literacy. We're not going to conserve all of the natural areas in this world. And we're absolutely not going to solve poverty. But what we are going to do, if you take me up on this and start to get involved, is take the first step down a path to start to make a greater and greater and greater impact. See, that is what we often get so wrong in this space, is we think that we have to do this huge impact and that there's no other way to get involved. And, you know, if we spend time doing these little things, we're not actually going to be able to make the change that is needed. But that's just not true, because as you go along getting involved at a very, very low level, you start to understand the challenge and the need even more. And you start to connect with people and get involved with organizations or see an opportunity for new organizations or new support systems to be built. And then that leads to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And pretty soon you're making a much bigger impact than you ever thought was possible. But it happens over a long period of time, just like a seed that is planted in the ground and given enough water and nutrients to grow. You know, it might not seem like a lot is happening, but over a lifetime, like, trees grow to be very, very big. So this New Year's, instead of thinking about making this huge, audacious change in the world this next year, just take one topic and go from something that is broad to something that is reachable, and do it in the next month, and see what happens when you yourself start small and grow tall instead of starting tall and growing small. Well, team, that's it for me. Let's go out in the world and create good with the money in our pockets together. Talk soon.